I've run out of ideas. Yes, as you all know, Rob Gronkowski came out of retirement today and was subsequently traded to the Buccaneers to reunite with his old friend Tom Brady. It seems like the WWE 24/7 title and claiming that CBD was the cure for his CTE just wasn't doing it for Gronk. From a human standpoint, it's pretty easy to see why old players come back. The roar of the crowd, the fans they have all across the country, all the money they get, and the overall competition is something that's impossible to replicate in retirement. But above all, players like Gronk, who really have nothing to prove and nothing more to gain, probably come back just for the love of the game. So here are 10 other players that came out of retirement just like Gronk to play the game they love. Number 1. Of course, this is the most obvious one. It's Michael Jordan, so let's get it out of the way now. Michael Jordan unretired not once, not 3 times, but twice. The first retirement came out of nowhere on October 6, 1993. The reasons being he lost a desire to play the game of basketball, and of course the murder of his father. Jordan unretired on March 8, 1995 after a stint in the White Sox minor league system with a simple "I'm back" fax. Later, after completing another three-peat for the Bulls, the departure of Phil Jackson, and a basketball lockout, MJ walked away from the game of basketball again on January 13, 1999, and I'm sure you'll hear more about that in The Last Dance on ESPN. Jordan then became a part owner of the Washington Wizards and made statements that he was 99.9% sure he would never make a comeback, but he did on September 5th, 2001, and he donated his 2001 salary to the victims of the 9/11 attack. Jordan retired for good in 2003. And number 2, one of the most famous MMA fighters to ever do it, it is Chuck the Iceman Liddell. Chuck was an overall dominant light heavyweight champion in his heyday and had key wins over guys like Alistair Overeem, Vanderlei Silva, Randy Couture, and of course Tito Ortiz. Chuck retired after 3 immediate losses in 2010 and will be working as a UFC employee immediately after. But he announced that he'd be coming out of retirement for a November 24, 2018 fight against Tito Ortiz, a guy he had previously beaten twice in 2 classics. And this fight was very hard to watch if you're a Chuck Liddell fan. If you have any love and admiration for Chuck Liddell, I would warn you not to watch this fight as he gets KO'd pretty brutally in the first round. And it's pretty evident that his mind was writing checks that his body couldn't cash. Chuck also shouldn't have stepped in and fought a guy like Tito Ortiz, who was still somewhat actively fighting at the time. He should have just stayed retired. Number 3 is of course Brett Favre. Everybody remembers his heartbreaking press conference that nearly brought me to tears. He announced his retirement, and the boy came back shortly after. And after a summer of drama between Favre and the Packers, especially with the Packers now having Aaron Rodgers, Favre was reinstated and then traded to the Jets. They ultimately missed the playoffs, and Favre told the Jets he would be officially retiring. Stop me if you heard that one before, because he came back and played the following season with the Minnesota Vikings, leading them to an NFC title game and nearly a Super Bowl. He would retire the following season, but it seems like the Brett Favre coming out of retirement rumors still haven't stopped, and they may go on forever. Number 4 is Marshawn Lynch, one of the most legendary NFL players, had one of the most legendary retirements of all time. During the halftime of Super Bowl 50, he tweeted out a picture of his cleats on a telephone wire with a peace sign emoji, announcing that he was effectively hanging it up immediately. And all the fans that expected an emotional Marshawn Lynch crying at his retirement press conference in front of all the reporters were left disappointed. Of course, that was pretty short-lived, as he came out of retirement just a year later to play for his hometown Oakland Raiders, and then came out of retirement this past year to play for his former Seattle Seahawks. And as far as the 2020 NFL season, whenever that may be, Marshawn still hasn't ruled anything out. He definitely has a lot left. I saw it firsthand against the Eagles in the playoffs. He definitely could play in the 2020 NFL season, whenever that may be. Number 5. Jason Witten. He called it quits at the end of the 2017 season with 11 Pro Bowl nods and a resume that could go up against almost any other tight end in NFL history. It was announced that spring that he would be joining the Monday Night Football crew as a commentator, and once he did, many people thought that he was a complete train wreck. He came out of retirement shortly after that for the 2019 season to play with the Cowboys, and just signed a 1-year deal to play with the Raiders in the 2020 season. Number 6 is the GOAT, Satchel Paige. At the time of his debut in 1948, Satchel Paige was the oldest player to debut in the major leagues at the age of 42. Satchel, of course, had no other choice than to make a name for himself in the Negro Leagues, as he was blatantly discriminated against throughout his whole career by the major leagues. After a successful 5-year stint as an older man in the major leagues, Satchel retired, only to come out of retirement at the age of 59 in 1965 for the Kansas City Athletics, in which he pitched 3 scoreless innings. That's called old man strength, folks. Then in 1968, Paige petitioned pretty much every owner to sign him at the age of 62 years old, as he was 158 days short as an employee of receiving a pension. The pension would of course be from Major League Baseball. The Braves brought him in mostly as a coach, but he did pitch in a few exhibition games against minor leaguers. Number 7 is Magic Johnson. A physical before the season in 1991 revealed that Magic had HIV. He announced this on November 7th, 1991 to the shock of the sports world and immediately retired from the sport, only to return for the 92 All-Star Game and the 92 Olympics on the Dream Team. There was opposition and support coming from both sides in regards to Magic's illness. In support of Magic, Charles Barkley wore the number 32 during the 1991-1992 season and said, after being asked whether or not he would play against Magic Johnson in a game of basketball, he said, and I quote, "We're just playing basketball. It's not like we're going to have unprotected sex with Magic." Charles Barkley was truly ahead of his time. Still, overall opposition and protest stalled Magic's return, which is something he admitted he later regretted. He admitted he shouldn't have immediately retired following his announcement of being HIV positive. He was the head coach of the Lakers for part of the 1994 season before coming back for the 95-96 season. He averaged about 15 points per game and 7 assists, only to retire the season after that. Number 8, not that we're keeping track because I don't think I have been, is Mario Lemieux. One of the all-time hockey legends, had plenty of adversity to endure during his career. One of the men responsible for back-to-back titles for the Pittsburgh Penguins, Lemieux had frequent back injuries and actually had to take a few months off of hockey due to a positive Hodgkin's lymphoma test, something he later beat and played on the last day of his radiation therapy. But all these health problems added up and Lemieux decided to retire in 1997. Super Mario was so good that the NHL decided to wait its 3-year wait period for the Hall of Fame and induct him almost immediately. Then in 1998, the Penguins declared bankruptcy and it looked like they were going down for the count. Lemieux stepped in and bought the motherfuckers, becoming the principal owner and president of the Penguins. Lemieux unretired and returned to the Penguins on December 27, 2000, becoming the only owner, player, Hall of Famer to ever play, and I don't think someone will be able to do that again. Lemieux finished that season with 76 points, which is good for highest points per game in the league. He retired in 2006, but that was not before several successful seasons and an Olympic gold medal at the Winter Games in 2002 as a captain for Canada. Number 9 is Michael Phelps. That's right, we're covering all goddamn sports. After amassing 22 overall Olympic medals and 18 gold medals in 3 Olympics in 04, 08, and 2012, and Phelps announced his retirement. Many wondered why the hell they would watch the Olympics now. But the casual fans celebrated as he came back to competitive swimming in 2014 and went on to win 5 total gold medals at the 2016 Olympics. Phelps left a legacy that many considers the greatest in all of the Olympics and swimming. And number 10, the last one on our list, is George Foreman. Now the younger generation knows him for his grills, but the older generation knows him for cooking up some ass whoopings. A career that consisted of an Olympic gold medal as an amateur, a world heavyweight title with a victory over Smokin' Joe Frazier in 1973, and 2 title defenses before ultimately losing to Muhammad Ali at the Rumble in the Jungle. He retired after his second loss in 1977 to only unretire 10 years later, fighting a total of 34 times and losing only 3 of these fights to boxing legends like Evander Holyfield, Tommy Morrison, and Shannon Briggs. Let's go, champ! Most notably, at the age of 45, he knocked out 26-year-old Michael Monroe to become the oldest heavyweight champion in boxing history. He retired at the age of 48 and went on to sell 100 million units of the George Foreman grill and sell the naming rights of the George Foreman grill for $138 million. So congrats, you made a shitload of money. And coming out of retirement seems to be a trend in boxing. Tyson Fury beat Vladimir Klitschko and then announced his retirement. He then subsequently had to come over battles with depression, alcohol, weight and health issues, as well as a lengthy suspension. It was a long road back for Mr. Fury, but today he is the heavyweight champion of the world and the baddest man on the planet. Manny Pacquiao retired after the 3rd fight with Tim Bradley, only to unretire a few months later, and now sits as someone in the top 10 pound-for-pound boxing rankings in the world. And at the age of 37, Muhammad Ali announced his retirement, only to unretire a brief while later. He lost 3 of the last 5 fights he ever fought, as he only lost 2 fights previously going into that. So all in all, it was a terrible decision for Muhammad Ali to come back, and it certainly didn't help him battle all the physical ailments he faced later in life. Alright, that is it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. 1 video a week, or at least I'll try to. Obviously, I'm trying to do anything, so this is the type of video I produce. Check out the website, votetheprocess.com. And Paradise, play us off, my friend.
And I find no one greater than my baby. What a time, always smoking